Good, good, good. All right, it is that time, and we will be starting here momentarily. Oh, your camera is sideways. There you go. And if I may, I'll need you, please, Jason, to rename yourself. We all use the same link, and that gave everyone the same name. If you could click on the three dots next to video, you can rename yourselves. Thank you.
Rosario. Oh, yeah, there you go.
There you go. Very good. Thank you.
If you're just joining the call, please check and rename yourself because I gave you all my link and you have my name underneath your video.
Yes, Dr. Brossard, if you could just, I know you're doing that, just wanting to make sure that you got the message. We all got the same link, so click on the three dots next to video and you can rename yourself. All right, we are live on Facebook now. Welcome from wherever you're joining us this evening on this beautiful Thursday across this country. We're very pleased to have you here. My name is David Cruz. I will be acting as your moderator this evening. And this is not a formal affair. This is really a conversation among friends on a topic that is being discussed at kitchen tables and in homes and churches all across our country. What will happen in Georgia? Tonight, we have an esteemed and very, very distinguished panel of special visitors who are with us. And I just want to thank you for being here. Certainly, we want to hear your comments. We also want to ask you to kindly share this link everywhere that you can, because this conversation, like many that are taking place at this moment, but I would dare say, and we've done quite a few of these forums, but tonight we speak about something that will impact not just Georgia, but the country and our communities. And so I really do want to thank you for being here, and I invite you to share it with your friends and family. We will be joined momentarily. Here he is now, and I know that he just walked in. We are welcome, and we are pleased to have and be able to welcome the national president for the League of United Latin American Citizens. And then I will more appropriately introduce each of the other participants. We begin this evening, and I know President Garcia, you've just walked in, and we used a common link, so the name will change, but that's okay. If you could give us your opening remarks, we very much would appreciate it. You're muted right now. Thank you. Just unmute. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. No, thank you for having us on this meeting. The fact of the matter is, the eyes of the United States and everybody is on Georgia right now. Everybody has Georgia literally on their mind. It seems like there's a new story all the time. And LULAC is definitely concerned about what happens in Georgia. We have a large Latino population, a diverse Latino population. We've seen our first Latina DA elected in Georgia. We got a state representative, Brenda Ramos over there. And so we're seeing sort of Latinos flexing their political power and influence in Georgia, and where the race is so close. We think that LULAC can help local organizations get out the vote. We understand there's over 300,000 Latinos that are registered to vote. Only about 150,000 voted in the first round. If we can increase that, I think that that will make a margin. I know we're dealing with voter suppression. Brother, I live in Texas, so we're used to voter suppression. And in Georgia, purging the rolls, rigging the system, and now they're trying to stop people from voting early in Georgia through a variety of lawsuits. Again, it's an old Jim Crow concept that they continue to try to stop Americans from voting legally, by the way. And then they allege fraud and all types of voter fraud when the ones that are committing the voter fraud and the voter suppression is them. in this case, the Republican Party and the establishment. So we're going to do everything we can, both on the legal run and on the political side, to get our vote out and to protect the right of the voters that you exercise it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Garcia, for the opening remarks. I'd also like to welcome now the Chief Executive Officer for LULAC, Sindy Benavides, who is also here with us. And I welcome you, Madam, if you would please give us an opening remark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And to all who have joined, thank you for joining us. We know that for some, it may be past dinner time. For others, it's 6 p.m., depending on where you are in the country. And just, thank you to Jessica, to Reverend Walker, Reverend Johnson, to Rosario, to Jason, to Dr. Brossard, and so many others who will be joining, for making time to connect. Absolutely, if we learned anything from November 3rd, is that our voices and our vote matters. And what we know for sure is that Georgia will absolutely carry and be the difference maker when it comes to our Senate and when it comes to the makeup of Congress. There is so much at stake in this election. And it's really funny because I feel like every single year we say that this is the most important election of our lifetimes. Well, Georgia, this is absolutely the most important election that is happening in our lifetime. And there's so much at stake. I'm going to stop there, David, because I know we have so many voices to amplify from our local leaders. But I want to say thank you so much to all the panelists for joining, and for everyone who's tuning into Facebook. Remember to get the word out. We're text banking, we're phone banking, we're door knocking, we're doing everything possible to make sure that every single eligible Latino turns out to vote. Con eso, muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. How can I introduce such a distinguished panel? All I can say is, in one box, we have two icons. We have the Reverend and our dear friend Peter Johnson, and the Reverend Al Walker, whose roots are deep in the South, across from Georgia through Louisiana into Texas. Gentlemen, I'd like to give you the floor to say hello and make an opening statement. Unmute, just unmute the computer, please. Here we go. That's okay. Peter, you're first.
First, thank you all so much. Some of you all, I have 40 plus years of history with Domingo. I've known some of you all, I had black hair when I met you. The whole question of voting for me has blood and funerals involved in it. As we continue with our historic march toward equal rights for all of God's children in America, the biggest tool we have is the right to vote. Georgia becomes the epicenter of change in America. Can you believe Ebenezer Church? It's God talking to us, trying to show us something. The whole question of the right to vote. John Lewis' office was down the street. My office was down the street from Ebenezer Church. This has so much historical value to all of us who have seen the insides of jails for the right to vote. And what we know now is when black hands and brown hands join together, as we do it in Georgia for the presidential election, Joe Biden won that election because liberal Jews, liberal white students, but most important, Blacks and Latinos joined together in Georgia, and we won that for Mr. Biden. If we can win these two senatorial seats, there are things we can do for our nation, for poor people, for suffering people, for people trapped in jails. There are things we can do in our nation that we can't do if Mitch McConnell is controlling the United States Senate.
Amen.
So I'm so grateful, Domingo, to all of you all who have made this commitment. It's good to see Sindy, all of you all. But hey, baby, let's get this done.
I just want you to know how much we love and appreciate your life of service. Words cannot do justice to everything you do for this community. Thank you. Reverend Walker, you're there in the same space. I'll give you the floor and then we'll continue with some other guests who are joining us tonight.
Thank you, David, to Brother Domingo, to Sindy, to all of you. Thank you. It's been 20 years since I got here from Georgia, and the work for justice and social justice, civil rights is it's a never-ending battle. And I was in Georgia when major happenings around the Southwest were happening, and it was happening in Georgia as well. So on the heels of what Peter has said, and I've worked with him the past couple of years, there is this never-ending saga of the need for persons of color to have advocacy, to have people stand up whose voices are muted. And now we see how the politicization of office holding, of leading this country has just devastated this land. So while we know we have a lot of work to do, what is more important now is how to get feet on the ground, how to mobilize, how to get persons to the voting booth so that people are not denied a right that is an innate, it is the natural right of a citizen to be able to vote and share their voice. So we're in it to win it. We have a saying, and this is something that has been a part of the clergy and the church, especially the Black church. We talk about all souls to the polls. And however we do it, through mass transit, through carpooling, through walking persons, whatever we need to do, we want to do that. And we support our persons in Georgia. That's my birthplace. My family is there. And I know quite a few persons who are in this fight. So we're in it to be supportive of all of the work they're doing. As much as we can do, we will do. And beyond that, we will continue to work together.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you very much, Peter and Reverend Al Walker. Women are such an important part of this effort all across the country, but certainly in Georgia. I want to turn now to Rosario Palacios. Look, I could spend minutes reading her bio, but here's what I'm going to tell you. In the revolution, we had the Adelitas. In the Mexican Revolution, today we have the courageous women like Rosario Palacios. Rosario, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone. My name is Maria de Rosario, and Rosario for short, or Chayo. I am a former poultry plant worker. I grew up in Gainesville, Georgia, Northeast Georgia, from kindergarten through my master's program in public administration. And so let me tell you about our vibrant, beautiful community in Georgia. Latinx folks are on the forefront of all the major movements. That's definitely the case for getting out the vote now, especially with an election at the margins and Latinx folks, that have not been reached out to ever before. And so I'm here on behalf of Georgia Familias Unidas, which started off with mutual aid response to poultry plant workers who were being exposed to COVID-19 at work. Many of our essential workers have not had a single day off. They have not had the opportunity to work from home like many of us have. And we are the state, we are the #1 state to do business because we are the #1 state that has essential workers in the food industry and in the agriculture industry who have not taken a day off, sometimes when they really needed to during COVID-19. That was certainly the case for my mother in June when she became very sick. And since then, she's been helping us organize. She luckily recovered from COVID-19, and so did my family. And so we have been out there doing PPE distribution events at polleras, at carnicerias, at laundromats, where our folks are on the ground. And this has been a buildup of amazing, amazing work done by organizations like Galeo, that I am a graduate and former worker of, amazing organizations like the Latino Community Fund, GLAR, so many more who have been doing this work for decades on the ground. Georgia is not where it's at by mistake. Don't think that for a second. There's been organizers like Black and Brown women across the state, outside of the metro area, mind you, who have been pushing our folks to empower them for sustainable growth. And that's what we're doing. So super happy to be here to talk about what we're doing.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Jason Esteves. He is the chair of the Atlanta Public Schools of the Board of Education. Jason, thank you for being here this evening. Your initial thoughts.
Thank you so much for having me, David, and appreciate LULAC having this event. Welcome to Georgia, everyone. We know that the eyes of the country are on us, and I know that each one of you that are watching from home know what's at stake. Justice is at stake, whether that's social, economic, environmental. The COVID-19 fight is at stake. And whether you watch the news or have experienced it on your own, over 300,000 people have died in this pandemic. Thousands of small businesses have closed, people's lives ruined because of a failure in leadership in Washington. Our future is on the ballot. And we know that the outcome of this election will determine all of those important things. And Georgia stands ready to stand up and to show up at the polls. We did it in November, and we did it because of, like Maria said, organizers and organizations who have been working for decades to do the groundwork that built up to the historic election that occurred in November. It happened because of Black and Latino and AAPI communities coming together. We had historic turnout in our communities. Latino turnout from 2017 was up over 72%. AAPI turnout almost doubled. Black turnout increased by over 30%. This is what created that margin that Joe Biden saw in November. And we can do that again. We can do that again with organizations like LULAC, with organizations like the NAACP, partnering with organizations here in Georgia, like the ones that Maria mentioned, Galeo, GLAR, Fair Fight Action, the New Georgia Project. There are so many great organizations that are working Black and brown communities here in this state to ensure that they come out and vote and that their voices are heard. So join us in this fight. We can win this. We will win this as long as we show up.
Thank you, Jason. You know, this is not a rah-rah rally here. It is really, though, it shows the energy that people have in Georgia. Thank you for expressing that, Jason. Thank you. Now, Dr. Richard Brossard, he could be described again as, you know, for his medical background in the area of pharmaceutical work as a doctor of pharmacy, but I see him more as someone who's been out there on the front line, who understands what's at risk amid this pandemic. Doctor, your opening thoughts of what's at stake and why you're here. You're muted, Doctor.
First of all, thank y'all for having me. My goal and my concern is public health and safety, first and foremost. Also, I want to send my condolences out to all the families that are affected. We're over 317,000 deaths due to COVID right now. I wanted to address that there is a spike that we're seeing from the holiday travel that's affecting the likelihood of people wanting to get out to vote, especially those of the underserved and minority communities of color, and where we have trepidation or some fearfulness about exposing ourselves to increased risk. Like Dr. King said in his 1966 in Chicago, that he was speaking about, of all the injustices, that he found those in healthcare to be most shocking and inhuman. And we find ourselves here dealing with the social determinants of health as the American Medical Association just determined to add that to policy, that these things have affected our total life expectancy. And when we start to talk about voting and safety for the runoff, we also have to address the fact that in some areas defined by zip code, that we see gaps in life expectancy over 20 years. So you're talking about the ability to vote for an individual for 4 elections, you know, in some cases. And these things are the long-term things that have been prevalent. It's the slow squeeze on life. And that's why I'm here. Peter's my mentor. We've been working together in the community. my thing is I've been working in the community as a retail pharmacist for 20 years. And what I see is the gaps in healthcare, the lack
Yeah.
of access to care, the money, the income inequality. All these things are problematic that deal with the social determinants of health. And right now we have a sick care system and not a healthcare system. And I think we need to go more to a community-based system where we don't have to deal with these problems later down the line for our younger generations, where everybody has the equal opportunity to be safe when we want to get out to vote.
Thank you, Dr. Richard Brossard. So this next person that I will introduce, who is also part of our conversation, Jessica Garcia. She is a Georgia Poderosa Fellow. Last evening was my first time meeting her. Less than 24 hours later, here she is with you, and here's why. She is the daughter of immigrant parents. She is there in Georgia. She is already a leader in her community, and she has las ganas, the will to do. Jessica, you've heard a lot of people say things already. What can you add to our evening tonight as to why this moment matters in your home of Georgia?
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be on here with all of you. Yes, I've been born and raised in Georgia my whole life. I didn't start getting civically engaged until later on in my college career. And honestly, I wish I would have started sooner. So I definitely want us to encourage more the younger generation to start at a sooner age, because we have so many great leaders who have come before us. Rosario is one of them. There's leaders here who are undocumented, and they are putting themselves in the forefront to continue the hard work. And I've just been trying to get more engaged and grow as a leader so I can carry that baton, so more generations can stay on the table with us, because I see the power that comes with voting. As you mentioned, my parents are immigrants. They don't have the ability to vote, so it's my poder to be able to cast my vote in their honor. Amplifying their voice, because I honestly don't believe people are voiceless. They just go unheard, and that's what the power of voting can do. And I encourage everyone to organize and mobilize and join any phone bank. That's what we've been doing with Poderosas. I've been learning how to run my own phone bank and text banking. So I'm really excited to be here with you all tonight.
And thank you for Poder Latinx that has made this possible. President Garcia, Domingo, I want to ask you this. You talked about it. We saw it firsthand in Texas, voter suppression, alive and kicking. What do you expect in coming days, and why is it important that the voters who are watching tonight, everybody who's engaged, understand this is by no means over?
Well, what we've seen is, especially in the South, that Republicans resorted to rigging the system as their numbers continue to go down. And we saw it in Texas, where they tried to purge 95,000 predominantly Latino U.S. citizens, and LULAC had to file a lawsuit to put those voters back on the rolls. We've seen them in Houston, where they reduced the number of absentee locations from 16 to 1 in a county with 8 million people. And in Georgia, we saw the attempts to purge literally thousands of voters, and now trying to prevent voters from voting absentee via the legal processes. So we have to be on our toes, because these people don't play fair, and they play hardball. And to them, it's about raw political power, and controlling the Senate is the ultimate political power, because there may be some more Supreme Court justices that get up there. And if we're going to pass a progressive agenda, an agenda that helps working class men and women in America, we got to be able to control the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency so that those bills pass. If not, you're going to see obstruction, gridlock, and the rich are going to get richer, and working people and poor people are going to get the shaft.
Rosario, Maria del Rosario, let me ask you this. What is it like right now in Georgia? What's at stake in day-to-day terms? ¿Qué está viviendo la gente? What are the people living there day in and day out in your state?
Well, day in and day out, folks go to work, unsure whether someone around them is going to get sick again. That's definitely the case for our Latinx folks. Our Hispanic communities have been hit the hardest. and hit the hardest when they can least afford it, right? It's not easy to take off 2 days off work. Our policymakers chose to speed up the lines, for instance, at the poultry plants in March, right at the beginning of the pandemic. That was chosen and passed on a federal level without any consideration of what this pandemic is doing for our folks. So our folks are out here and they're hit hard. And you know, that's a huge motivation, because we come from a cultura that is very resilient, more resilient than we've had to be. And we're not taking the sitting down. I mean, y'all saw early voting on the first day was much higher than in the general election. So people know what's at stake, and our community knows what's at stake. And thanks to the amazing leaders here, you know, we're not leaving, like Jessica said, any voice unheard, because we are out here and we're screaming loudly. We need policymakers that take us seriously and care about our issues. And that's not going to happen in the Senate race or in the Public Service Commissioner race without our input.
Jason, I want to turn to you. We're giving priority to people who are there in Georgia on the ground, education. That is your focus. The public schools, what are they like? And why is it that if you've got power in the Senate and in this upcoming administration, public education in America and school teachers are going to be able to prevail?
Well, look, we've had for the last 4 years Secretary of Education that has not believed in public education. And when you have that, you have a federal government that is not providing our public education system, the students and the teachers the support that it needs to provide our students with opportunities for the future. And we've seen that firsthand over the last 4 years. That changes with this new administration, but it needs the funding in order to succeed in a progressive agenda in education. And that requires a Senate, which is why the Senate is so important. We need a Senate to advance that progressive public education agenda, but we also need that Senate to support a great Secretary of Education. We have seen at the local levels attempts to dismantle public education. We've seen attempts to devalue students who are going to our public schools. And not only that, but we've seen disinvestment in our communities for basic health services. So one of the things that we have seen increase in our public school systems is the reliance on our public schools for everything. In this pandemic, I'm sure that in your cities, you've seen students rely on schools, even though those schools were not in person, rely on those schools for food.
Yes, yes.
Atlanta Public Schools has given out over 500,000 meals since March. And we haven't been in school since March. So the need to help public education from the inside and out is great. And we can do that better with a United States Senate and a White House that is working together.
Thank you. And of course, the objective tonight is to motivate and mobilize people to get out the vote. LULAC is a nonpartisan organization. We're here with the BIPOC focus, you know, Blacks and Indigenous and people of color. Thank you all for being here. Reverend Walker and Reverend Peter Johnson. I know you said to call you Peter, but I can't. The respeto. I was raised that way. Peter, we talk about the pipeline to education, but we've seen the pipeline to prison alive and thriving. Tell me how control of the Senate would be vital to the outcome of the criminal justice system. Unmute your computer, please. Thank you. Go.
First, there are white men in the United States Senate who are Republicans today who have investments in corporations that are money come from prisons. Their income is based on how many people in the cells, X amount of dollars per inmate. So they have a vested interest in seeing people go to jail. To me, it is an interesting, fascinating contradiction. But there are white men today who are Republicans who are in the United States Senate with stock invested in making sure that these companies make money who have investments in prisons. So there's a relationship between who gets elected and who goes to prison.
Mm.
And
Very, very good. And I want to thank you for that. If I could turn to Jessica off of that point, and you need to unmute, please keep your audio open if you can. Ms. Garcia, I want to ask you about that. What's at stake in Georgia when it comes to the young people like you who are talking about things that matter to them? What's at stake for you and your peers right now? And why should people watching care about supporting the vote in Georgia in any way that they can, either voting or sending money or phone banking? Why do you think it's important to young people like you?
So I recently graduated from Georgia State University in the fall of 2019. So the idea of student loans does loom in the back of my head, education. And also as I moved out of my home town, I grew my circle of friends, and I realized that a lot of people are have DACA or are undocumented, and they don't have a pathway to citizenship. And with the Senate, we could create that pathway for them. So I definitely believe that if we show out this election season, we can bring that change within my lifetime.
And are you seeing young people like you involved in this effort right now? And if so, what's moving them to get involved?
Yes, definitely. It's all over social media. You can't avoid it. People are using Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Celebrities are joining in. As you know, millennials who are on social media a lot, and we're using it as a power tool now to encourage everyone to go out to vote. And here in Georgia, the Latinx community, the ones who are already civically engaged or starting to get civically engaged, it's very tight-knit community, like a family. We're providing resources and encouraging each other to pursue our goals.
Thank you. Dr. Richard, look, I want to ask you something. You are, as you pointed out, in the health field. Not all states, in fact, I can't even list the states that have said meat packers and ag workers are essential workers who should be getting the vaccine right there at the top. What do you say about that? Because control of the Senate, and the Senate, of course, makes determination on policy matters that can influence state decisions. How important is it in your mind to see the essential workers of Georgia included on a higher priority for the vaccine?
I think it's very essential due to the fact that these are the people, these are everyday hardworking citizens who supply those who are privileged, those who are not in transit every day, who are not putting themselves at increased risk, that are not in the environments where they're constantly dealing with the public. So to take care of the people that take care of those who feed those who are doing the services, the truck deliver, the people who drive the trucks, the people in the meat packing plants, they are just as important as our healthcare workers. They both, to me, should be prioritized because these are things that we have to have. And to another point that was made earlier that I wanted to talk about was the fact that we have to address what I think Jason mentioned it about the education system and the food insecurity and these things that cause malnutrition, vitamin deficiency, mineral deficiency, and all these things are affecting the total psychological and physiological well-being of our children and causing toxic stress. So we talk about the school to prison pipeline, and you talk about our kids being misdiagnosed as ADD, depression, and all these things. It comes back to the food. It comes back to the toxic stress that causes PTSD, which releases cortisol. And then from that fact, you have a on switch of adrenaline, which is your fight or flight response that totally starts to break down your body, and it increases your risk for cardiovascular disease, for cancer. So all these things are interrelated. And if we don't have people in place that care about these things, we will continue to see the same pattern. So to get back to the original point, the food is very important. People who work in our meat packing plants are very important. There are essential workers, there are frontline workers, they are people that we care about. They are not expendable.
There you go. I want to thank everyone who's watching on Facebook. I want to recognize that we have viewers from around the country. Andres Rodriguez, definitely watching tonight. We have people who are viewing from across the nation, and they're saying, look, we understand what's at stake, but I want to go now to Reverend Walker and ask you something that you touched on. I know you've got roots in both Georgia and here in Texas. The faith-based community in Georgia, how are they feeling right now, year after year of voter suppression? Now in Georgia today, you talk about an educated vote, about people knowing what's on the ballot. Are people aware of what's at stake right now in the churches and the faith-based community of Georgia, Reverend?
Absolutely. I communicate regularly with leaders, family leaders, political leaders on a weekly basis, and they are absolutely aware. I get information through Facebook and other means about some of the things that are happening. And so the clergy are on point when it comes to responding to social ills. They always have been, they continue to be. And so the work we have before us is a both and rather than either or. We must mount up now for the present. We must get the vote out. We must change those who are representing the state of Georgia as U.S. senators.
So let me ask you this, Reverend. Let me ask you this. Comment on this as you're talking. Barry Lockman on Facebook says the failure to disavow the white supremacist movement, you know, because the incumbents have not been willing to do that. My question is this: the white supremacist issue, how significant is that to the BIPOC community right now in Georgia in terms of speaking out against it?
Well, and very quickly, I'll sum it up this way.
Yep.
For clergy and for the church, especially the Black church where I represent, we've always understood that white supremacy was baked into the American pie. And so from the very beginning, not just 1776, but 1619, with the colonies and the Americas, racism, supremacy was baked into the beginning. And if you track 1776 to 1865 with the Emancipation Proclamation, even with the freedom given to slaves, quote unquote, for 100 years from 1865 to 1964, the Civil Rights Act, and 65, the Voting Rights Act, slavery and freedom worked side by side as fraternal twins. And so we in America, we've never had an opportunity to not fight for freedom. White supremacy is baked into the church, especially the white church. And so you have in America persons who tout themselves as Christians who are really supporters of militarism and a kind of supremacy where they see their faith as a lead to being superior to others. But the biblical tenet of faith suggests that all of us were created in the image of God. All of us are brothers and sisters. And what has threatened America more over the past 20 years is the continued blackening and browning of America, the empowerment of women, and the need to share the resources. That's what's driving this more and more. And so, yes, the church is mounted up and has continued to fight since those days of civil rights and Jim Crow.
And we thank you for that. We will continue. Ahora quiero dar un momento para que también la audiencia de habla hispana pueda participar. Voy a pedir amablemente que participe Sindy Benavides, our CEO. I know that you've been multitasking this evening, but thank you for sticking with us. What do you say? ¿Qué le dice usted a la comunidad de habla hispana?
David, muchísimas gracias por esa pregunta y diría que como pueblo, como individuos, tenemos el derecho y el poder de alzar nuestras voces, tomar acción para políticas que son más equitativas para nuestras comunidades. Y como lo escuchamos de Rosario, sabemos que nosotros venimos de una comunidad trabajadora, de una comunidad que ha luchado por todo lo que tiene, por una comunidad que está creciendo en el estado de Georgia. Y sabemos que a través de nuestro voto, a través de no solamente alzar nuestra voz, tenemos que literalmente marchar a las urnas para votar podemos hacer la diferencia. Y tenemos que tener en mente que hay tanto que pesa sobre estas elecciones en Georgia. Sabemos que nuestro Senado a nivel federal puede cambiar completamente si nuestras comunidades salen a votar. Y entonces lo que diría David es que tenemos que recordarnos de los últimos 4 años, cuánto nuestra comunidad ha sufrido, cuánto hemos sido perseguidos, cuántos inmigrantes han sido regresados sin poder tocar a nuestro territorio de los Estados Unidos, que de verdad son refugiados, personas que están huyendo a países. Y creo que también nosotros, los jóvenes que están en el estado de Georgia, tienen un gran poder al poder votar, al poder influenciar a sus familias y a las personas que conocen. Gracias por esa pregunta, David, para esas personas que tal vez nos están escuchando en español.
No, thank you, Sindy. And she just recapped a narrative of the price that our communities have been paying, the Black, the Indigenous, the people of color. Jessica, as you heard that, I know that when I spoke to you for the first time, if you could unmute your microphone last evening, you thought about your parents. You began by telling me about your immigrant parents. You just heard her speak to your parents and parents like her in Georgia. So when you and your young peers talk about the future, do you think you'll see in your lifetime a different America? And what is the America you want to see that makes this election so important?
Yeah, so like you've mentioned, my immigrant parents, their story motivates me and inspires me to follow my dreams and not to let any obstacle or fear come
What are
ahead
your
of me.
parents' names? Give me their parents. I want them to hear their name.
Herminda Banda Martinez y Fidencio Garcia.
Que
And
vivan!
and yeah, so within my lifetime, I definitely think we can see the change because we're working hard. I see it within Georgia, and I strongly believe that every little grain of sand will add up. In the future, I hope to see a pathway to citizenship. I'm also an immigration paralegal, so I experience that stress that my clients have experienced, and just a better education system and more opportunities for younger generations.
Maria del Rosario, follow up with that. Here you have Jessica. You were there not long ago. Now you're a poderosa yourself with the Familias Unidas. What drives you? And we talk about the educated ballot and being informed. What do you think is going to make the difference in this election coming up in a few days?
Well, we have a Latinx community, Hispanohablante community that is collective. And when we vote, we don't vote just for ourselves. We vote for our family members. Every single day at 5 a.m. this morning, we went to a local poultry plant and we handed out PPE kits that we put together the night before. And so every single parent walking into that plant, whether they have a voting status or not, said, my 2, 3, 4 kids are going to go vote mañana. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. They're repeating back the information to us. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is what should be motivating us. That there are folks who cannot vote who know about this election, who care and know the issues and know what's at stake. And they are mobilizing their folks, which are their kids, right? These are poultry plant workers that in the late 80s, early 90s came, and now their kids are my age, right? They're 30, they're in their late 20s, they're in their early 20s. The median age in Georgia to vote for Hispanic voters is 25. So this is a new wave of folks that has been awakened from the beginning, and it's beautiful. Like if you do not have hope for the elections in this runoff, let me tell you, in Georgia, we are overflowing with hope, and we are overflowing with it in our Black and Brown communities.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I was asked, should we have fewer or more? I said, mira, entre más mejor. The more, the merrier. Jason, as we start to round home and wrap up this conversation tonight, because we've got a lot of work ahead. I've heard a lot of comments talk about how energized your community is. And Fran Tattoo said, thank you for mentioning the indigenous. No hay que agradecer nada. There's nothing to be thanked. We are all of different walks of life. Today we witnessed President-elect Biden nominate, or at least it is reported, he will nominate the first Native American to head the Department of the Interior, first Native American on the cabinet of a president's administration. How do you feel about that, coinciding with the Georgia election?
Well, look, in order to give people reason to vote and to help motivate them to vote, they need to see in their government themselves. And as we work to engage people across the country, as we work to engage people in the state, we want people to see themselves in the government, and to have a historic cabinet that is shaping up under this president-elect will motivate other people, people who may not have engaged in this last election, to participate further in future elections. I think about some of the history making that's happened in Georgia recently, particularly in the Latino community, whether it's Deborah Gonzalez becoming the first Latina DA in the state. I think the first Latina DA, the first Puerto Riqueña DA in the entire country. You have Brenda Lopez Romero, who became the first Latina state representative in the state just a few years ago. I was the first Latino school board member in the state about 7 years ago. Latinos are starting to make history here in this state in elected office. And when they see us in those positions in the of power, in the rooms where decisions are made, it motivates more people to get involved and to get engaged. And that's the ultimate goal here, is for everyone to be civically engaged, because at the end of the day, we want our government to be representative of its people. And the only way for that to happen is for us to vote.
Thank you for your service. President Garcia, I'd like to begin the closing remarks with you in terms of, we said we were going to have a call to action. What do you want that call to action? If you will activate your microphone, what do you want that call to action to be tonight?
We're asking all the members and people listening in to donate if they can. Every little bit helps to get the vote out there in Georgia. We want to continue to work in building infrastructure and capacity. Georgia, went blue for the first time. I'm in Texas. We're hoping to catch up with Georgia soon. We're just about 4 points behind. And we are looking forward to seeing and hoping that we can elect the two Senate Democratic candidates who can make a difference and make sure that we have legislation that benefits Jose Maria on Main Street and can make a difference in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Richard Brossard, your closing thought in terms of the call to action. What can we do? What can we say tonight to really get people motivated to work? Unmute your phone, rather your computer.
Well, I call on two things to protect our elders who are the most vulnerable. People like Peter, my dad's widowed, he lives with me. And also to educate our children, because our children are very confused at this point because the lack of leadership from top down. So there's mixed messages. The children don't know which way to think. They're not supposed to. We're supposed to be the ones that are the example for the children. So my call to action is to vote for those who care about early childhood development, because these things affect. We don't wake up with diabetes. We don't wake up with hypertension. Yeah. These things are over time. And if we don't focus on the food insecurity, all these things that are affecting us throughout our life and causing us to have the toxic stress and to act out and then lead to detention and to imprisonment. So we need to take a panoramic view and take a look collectively at what makes us well, as opposed to what hurts us and puts us in the graveyard.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Richard Brossard. We thank you. Jessica, I give you also the opportunity to speak to the young people of Georgia and everyone who's listening. The familias, unmute your computer. There you go. Thank you. What would you like to say in closing? Y a tus papás.
I would like to say everyone do make a plan to go out to vote. Early voting is still going on in Georgia. And also, I want to encourage everyone to continue the work even after the elections. The hard work always continues. yes, voting is powerful, but also mobilizing and encouraging our community to unite to amplify our voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. The Reverend Al Walker and Peter Johnson, the historic icons, they're sitting together in one room. Your closing thoughts tonight, my friends.
Well, it's been my pleasure to have been on this panel, and David, you've done an excellent job. Thank you so much. I would like to say that my charge or challenge is, in summation, a lot of what we've heard tonight. Number one, that is to serve, that whatever capacity we work in or live in, that at the core of it, it ought to be to serve, whether political office, whether clergy, whether teacher. We've gotten away from the understanding that we are to serve humanity. And even Jesus himself said that even the Son of Man came to serve and not to be served, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So we've got to get back to serving, number one. And secondly, collaboration. What I've witnessed tonight has been tremendous. And even now, maybe we're reestablishing an interstate collaboration that can be used and modeled from now on when it comes to national elections, national concerns, that this is the way to go, that we collaborate across cultures, across state lines, and be there for one another. So this is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Reverend Peter.
Well, first, David, to all of you all, thank you so much. This means a lot to me in terms of yesterday, our past, our history, and of course, looking toward tomorrow, our future. Regarding yesterday, David, when we walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge on our way to Montgomery, Alabama, fighting for the right to vote, walking with us that day was a man named Francisco Pancho Medrano. Pancho Medrano and I became friends during them bloody days fighting for the right to vote. This period in our history, we are continuing to fight for equal rights using this precious thing called the vote. So for all of us, in honor of Pancho,
Yes.
and all of the people who bled and suffered for the right to vote,
Thank you.
let's win this in Georgia. Let's
There you
win
go.
this for a pastor who's
There you go.
pastor at Ebenezer Church, where Martin King pastored. Let's win this for my friend John Lewis, who shed his blood on that bridge for the right to vote.
There you go.
So David and Domingo and all of you all, thank you so much. You know how much I love you all. Let's
Thank you,
get
Peter.
this done.
We got to get it done, Peter. Ray Madrid sends us a note. David, the military vets are never mentioned as a power to be. We fought for freedom and they have the power to influence a bit of the outcome. Ray, you are so right. Thank you for the service you've given this country. Maria del Rosario, también antes de despedirme de Georgia, before I say goodbye to Georgia, ¿qué me dices? What do you want to tell the people who are watching and those we can motivate?
So I want to say for folks in and out of the state, we're asking for semillas of change. We're asking for seeds of change. And that can look a couple different ways, right? There's already been a call to action to donate. $5 at Georgia Familias Unidas is 50 face masks. And that's 50 days for essential workers to be able to work and protect themselves and others. And if you can't give $5, you can give time. And that is worth tenfold. And so give us time, plug in today, tonight, it's not too late. Reach out to us. I'm sure many of us are going to drop our information in there. Georgia is ready. We're going to win. We're going to win January 5th. We're winning today. And these semillas of change are going to have a sustainable environment around them with the amazing leaders that were here today.
Thank you so very much. And I want to share Mickey Luna, our former national officer from LULAC in California, says, we are Georgia desde California. Roman Peña también. We love you. We thank you. I want to give the last word tonight to our National Chief Executive Officer, Sindy Benavides.
David, primero que nada, thank you so much as always for moderating and making sure that we focus on the mission. To everyone who tuned in, mil gracias. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for joining. To Summer, Ramiro, Hilda, Francisco, thank you for all the work that you're doing to mobilize in Georgia. And what I would say, David, is that the role and impact that each one of us can have and create cannot be measured. We must be united as we confront racism and bigotry and hate like never ever seen before, at least in some of our lifetimes, the younger ones at least. And we know that we have to stand up and confront white supremacy in our own backyard at a time where our very own identity is used as a weapon against us to target us indiscriminately. And even though, David, we walk through the valley of oppression, we will not be fearful because we know that the future holds a very bright future. We know that our community is growing and will only continue to grow. And although today we're 60 million strong, in just 30 years, we're going to be 130 million strong, and 1 in 3 Americans will be of Latino ancestry. And so what I say today for our 18-year-olds who are turning 18 every 30 seconds, we are continuing to grow as the power voters that we are. We're continuing to turn out. We're continuing to influence. And for those parents who are not eligible to vote, for our DACA, for our dreamers, we stand with you. We hear you. We thank you because you remind us of why we're in this moment and why we absolutely will change the history of America as we turn to Georgia. Con eso, muchísimas gracias a todos.
Thank you. Candy Ruiz Madrigal Reyes in Arizona, we thank you. Also, I want to thank David Rojas. I want to thank Summer McGuire. I want to thank Hector Flores. And I want to give one moment of courtesy here to Dr. Richard Brossard, who was asking me for a point of privilege. Doctor, yes.
Thank you very much. I want to address the veteran. I worked at the VA Medical Center in Memphis when I was in school for 4 years. We apologize for not acknowledging explicitly, but historically, implicitly, a lot of our family members, our communities, that was the only way for us to get out of sharecropping and things of that nature through the GI Bill. So we do acknowledge our veterans. Yeah. Y'all are very important, and we would never want y'all to feel like y'all are being excluded. Y'all are very important. Thank you for your service.
Dr. Richard, thank you. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that there are deported vets who cannot be in this country tonight, even though they defended this country. They've been deported because they did not have their citizenship, and we do not forget them. We never will forget them. To President Garcia, Sindy Benavides, Jessica, Maria del Rosario, Jason Evans, Dr. Richard Brossard, Dr. Johnson, and also Reverend Walker. It's been such an honor to be with you. I've been your bus driver tonight. And to everybody on Facebook, we love you, we think about you, and we say hasta la cima, to the summit. Que Dios los bendiga. God bless you. Bye-bye.